By the final week of August, Wade Pritchard's cotton fields no longer looked white. They looked burned. Across western Texas, leaves had curled into brittle fists. Empty branches rattled beneath a sky the color of hot steel. The cotton bolls that had survived the heat carried black scars where caterpillars had eaten through them. Others had opened too early and dropped damaged fiber into the dust. Wade stood beside his pickup, holding a ruined white bowl in one hand. He had farmed cotton for more than 50 years. He owned the largest operation in the county, sat on the regional growers board, and had spent more money fighting the infestation than most families earned in a decade. None of it had stopped the damage. Beyond his southern fence stood one field that was still dark green. The plants were uneven. Some reached a grown man's waist, while others barely rose above his knees. Their stems carried red and purple streaks. Their leaves were broad, rough, and shaped differently from row to row. They looked nothing like the uniform commercial cotton Wade had trusted his entire life. At the center of that field stood 13-year-old Lily Carter. She wore oversized denim overalls that had belonged to her grandmother, a faded cream work shirt, battered brown boots, and a straw hat with one side of the brim split by the wind. Her long, dark blonde hair hung down her back in a single, heavy braid. Lily held an open cotton boll in her palm. The fiber inside was not white. It was the deep brown of caramel left too long over a flame. Wade crossed the fence without asking permission. "How many seeds do you have left?" he asked. Lily closed her fingers around the bowl. "Enough to begin again," she said. Wade looked across the surviving rows. "And enough for my acreage?" Lily met his eyes. "Not if you plant it the same way you planted everything else." The wind pushed dust between them. Only 8 months earlier, Wade had laughed louder than anyone when Lily walked into the county auction house carrying a dented tin cash box and an old brown blanket folded beneath one arm. If you enjoy stories about forgotten farms, family secrets, and people who find value where everyone else sees failure, subscribe and join us. Sometimes the future is hidden inside something the world decided was obsolete. The property being auctioned that morning was known locally as the White Grave. 37 acres of exhausted cotton ground lay beyond the western edge of Lubbock County. The well produced only a weak, sandy stream. The irrigation system had cracked beneath years of sun. The barn was missing half its roof, the farmhouse leaned toward the north, and a rusted cotton picker sat in the weeds without an engine. 2 owners had lost everything trying to make the farm productive. The first had drilled deeper for water until the bank refused another loan. The second bought expensive seed advertised as drought-tolerant, then watched insects destroy the crop before his first payment came due. The county had been trying to sell the property for years. When the auctioneer announced the opening price of $4,400, nobody raised a hand. Then Lily stood. She was small for 13, with freckled skin, gray-green eyes, and boots that left dust on the auction room floor. Wade leaned toward the farmer beside him. "Somebody forgot to lock the schoolhouse," he said. Several men laughed. The auctioneer adjusted his glasses and looked toward Lily's mother, Anna, who stood near the back wall in a supermarket uniform. "Is your mother bidding?" he asked. "I am," Lily replied. She placed the tin cash box on the table. Inside were years of birthday money, payments from mending clothes, savings from selling eggs, and every dollar Lily had earned helping elderly neighbors clean barns and gardens. The auctioneer counted the money twice. No one challenged her bid. The hammer fell. At 13 years old, Lily Carter owned the worst cotton farm in the county. Wade followed her outside. "You understand that brown blanket won't make the ground any better," he said. Lily stopped. The blanket had belonged to her great-great-grandmother, Evelyn Carter. It was heavy, rough, and stitched from fabric that had never been dyed. Though it was more than 80 years old, its color remained warm and dark. "My family made this from cotton," Lily said. Wade smiled patiently. "Cotton is white. This one wasn't." He looked at her as though she had confused a family story with history. Then he pointed toward the dry horizon. "That farm has buried 2 grown men. It will bury your money before summer." Lily folded the blanket more tightly against her chest. "Maybe they planted the wrong thing." The men near the door laughed again. Lily did not, because hidden inside the blanket's oldest seam were 3 cloth packets of seed that no one else in the auction house knew existed. Lily found the packets after her grandmother died. She and her mother had spent a week sorting through the old farmhouse before it was sold. Most of the furniture went to relatives. The clothes were donated. Family photographs filled 3 cardboard boxes. The brown blanket was supposed to be thrown away. One corner had torn, revealing something beneath the lining. When Lily reached inside, her fingers touched cloth rather than stuffing. She opened the seam carefully. 3 narrow bags had been sewn into the blanket. Inside were hard brown seeds, smaller and less uniform than the cotton seeds sold by modern suppliers. A folded note rested beside them. The handwriting belonged to Evelyn Carter, born before the First World War and dead long before Lily was born. The first line read, "They want the cotton white because white belongs to the mill. Brown belongs to the land." Lily found Evelyn's notebooks in the same cedar chest. The pages described a family cotton variety called Prairie Brown. It had been grown across dry plains before buyers demanded white fiber that could be bleached and dyed consistently. Prairie Brown produced less cotton per acre. Its plants varied in height and color. Some fibers were reddish, others tan, and only a few reached the rich, dark brown used in the blanket. Commercial mills rejected that inconsistency. But Evelyn recorded other differences. The roots reached deeper. The plants matured slowly. They survived longer between rains. Certain family lines suffered less damage from caterpillars, while others endured extreme heat. Evelyn had not described a perfect crop. She had described a population in which different plants carried different strengths. When white commercial cotton became more profitable, the family stopped planting Prairie Brown. Evelyn saved the remaining seed in the only place she believed no one would search, inside the blanket made from its own fiber. Lily spent the winter reading every notebook. She learned why the White Grave was the only farm she could afford and the only one she wanted. If Prairie Brown could not grow there, the variety had probably reached the end of its story. If it survived, the broken land could prove that Evelyn had not saved those seeds for nothing. Lily and her mother drove to the farm in early March. The gate hung from one hinge. Wind pushed tumbleweed against the fence. Gray soil stretched between old cotton stalks left by the previous owner. Lily knelt and squeezed a handful of earth. It broke apart like powder. Wade arrived before noon, accompanied by 2 workers from his operation. He had come to inspect the boundary fence, but Lily understood why he had really come. He wanted to watch her see the property for the first time. "That soil cannot hold water," he said. "You can pour a river over it and lose half before the roots touch it." Lily showed him one of Evelyn's seeds. Wade rolled it between his fingers. "Old seed loses life," he said. "Sometimes after 5 years, sometimes sooner. This could be older than I am." "It might still grow." "It might make expensive bird feed." His workers chuckled. Lily took the seed back. She did not plant all 37 acres. She marked a small test field near the barn and left most of the farm untouched. She hauled free compost from a municipal yard, traded labor at a horse stable for aged manure, and spread shredded cotton stalks over the surface to reduce evaporation. She made shallow rows across the prevailing wind rather than following the old planting direction. Her mother helped after work but remained worried. Nearly all their savings were now tied to land that produced nothing. Repairing the well would cost more than they had left. Lily kept half the seed in reserve. She planted the other half by hand. Her first decision nearly destroyed the variety. Afraid that wind would uncover the seeds, Lily placed them too deeply. 2 days later, a brief storm soaked the field. The sun returned, baking the surface into a hard crust. 1 week passed, nothing appeared. Then another. The surrounding farms were already green. Lily's field remained brown and silent. Wade drove past each morning. On the 3rd week, he stopped. "I know a dealer who buys scrap equipment," he said. "That rusted picker might recover part of your money." Lily ignored him. After he left, she dug into the first row. Several seeds had germinated. Pale stems curled beneath the surface, trapped below the hardened crust. The plants had been alive. Lily had buried them where they could not escape. She sat in the dirt with a dead sprout across her palm. Nearly half Evelyn's saved seed had been lost because of her mistake. Her mother found her there at sunset. "This does not mean you were wrong about everything," Anna said. "It means I planted them wrong. It means you are 13. Lily looked toward the remaining packets inside the barn. "No," she said. "It means I do not get another careless attempt." Lily prepared the second planting differently. She loosened only the upper layer of soil. She placed the seeds closer to the surface and covered them with a light mixture of compost and shredded stalks. Then she waited. 6 days later, one curved green stem appeared. By evening, there were 7. Within a week, broken lines of seedlings crossed the field. They were not uniform. Some plants had deep green leaves, others carried reddish stems. Several grew quickly, while nearby seedlings remained small. A few failed without any obvious reason. Wade stopped at the fence with 3 neighboring farmers. "That is not a crop," he said. "That is an argument between weeds." The men laughed. Lily continued marking each plant with a small wooden stake. She recorded which ones emerged first, which survived heat, and which recovered after wilting. The difference between the prairie brown plants and Wade's commercial cotton became more obvious as summer approached. His fields grew in perfect rows, every plant nearly the same height. Lily's looked disorganized. But when the first extended dry period arrived, the surface around her plants remained cooler beneath the shredded stalks. The widely spaced roots had less competition. Several plants wilted during the afternoon and recovered after sunset without additional water. Others died. Lily did not hide those failures. She removed weak plants only after recording them. Seeds from survivors would be kept separately, not mixed into one anonymous pile. The first flower opened in June. It was pale yellow with a dark red center. A bowl formed behind it, then another. By late July, the earliest bowl began to split. Lily called her mother from the barn. Anna arrived, still wearing her work uniform. They stood together beneath the hot evening sun as the dry shell opened. Inside was a tight curl of brown fiber. Not dirty white, not stained tan, brown. Lily carried the bowl to the farmhouse and placed it beside Evelyn's blanket. The colors matched. For the first time, Anna touched the old fabric as though it were more than a family possession. "She really grew this," she whispered. Lily nodded. "And now you did." Word spread quickly. Neighbors came to see the strange field. Some stopped laughing. Others suggested that ordinary white cotton had been contaminated by soil or disease. Wade examined the fiber carefully. "It is short," he said. Lily knew he was right. The fibers were not long enough for many modern spinning machines. The plants also carried fewer bowls than commercial varieties. "Who will buy it?" Wade asked. Lily contacted a small textile workshop in Austin. The owner liked the natural color, but could not justify setting up equipment for such a tiny harvest. She would need hundreds of pounds before the fiber became useful. Lily's entire surviving field might produce only a fraction of that amount. The first living prairie brown cotton in generations had no buyer. The farm still could not pay its taxes, repair its well, or replace the missing barn roof. For several days, Lily wondered whether Wade had been right for the wrong reason. The crop could survive and still fail. Then August arrived with reports of caterpillars in fields north of the county. Cotton bollworms were not unusual in Texas. What frightened the growers was the speed. A mild winter had allowed more insects to survive. The first generation emerged early. Chemical treatments killed many, but not all. Another wave appeared after only a short interval. The caterpillars attacked flowers and chewed through young bolls. Wade's crews sprayed at night and checked fields before sunrise. Agricultural advisors warned that the infestation was developing unevenly, making treatment difficult. At the same time, water restrictions tightened. The regional aquifer had fallen again. Farmers received less irrigation during the hottest part of the season. The commercial cotton had been bred for high output under controlled conditions. Now, 2 of those conditions were failing at once. Wade's plants needed water. The insects needed only another day. The first damaged boll appeared in Lily's field near the northern fence. A caterpillar had eaten through the shell and destroyed the fiber inside. By the following morning, she found 6 more. Prairie brown was not immune. Lily walked every row, removing visible caterpillars by hand, and recording which plants suffered the most damage. Several of the tallest plants were hit badly. A shorter line with reddish stems carried fewer damaged bolls. Another family lost many leaves but continued flowering. Some plants stopped growing during the hottest days and resumed only after temperatures fell. The inconsistency Wade had mocked was becoming protection. In his commercial fields, nearly every plant responded to stress in the same way. When one weakness appeared, it appeared across thousands of acres. In Lily's field, the insects never encountered exactly the same plant twice. That did not stop them, it slowed them. Then the irrigation limits became severe. Wade's wells could not maintain the schedule his crop required. Leaves folded, young bolls dropped, and damaged plants lacked enough moisture to recover. Lily's field received only a small emergency watering near the roots. The upper soil dried, but several prairie brown plants remained green. Their deeper roots reached moisture below the damaged surface. By the end of August, Wade had lost large sections of his farm. The Miller operation north of town lost even more. From the road, Lily's small field appeared like a dark island surrounded by fading white cotton. That was when Wade came asking about seed. Lily refused to sell it immediately. She had not harvested enough to know which plants truly survived, and she would not mix seed from every plant together simply because buyers had become desperate. Wade accused her of withholding help. Lily looked across his ruined rows. "You wanted every plant to be the same," she said. "If I give you one bag and you plant it across everything, you will make the same mistake again." 3 days later, Dr. Marianne Vega arrived from a Texas agricultural university. She was a plant fiber specialist who had seen photographs of Lily's cotton sent by the Austin workshop. She came with 2 researchers, root sampling tools, portable moisture meters, and more questions than Lily could answer. They collected leaves, opened bolls, measured fiber, and excavated several root systems. The findings did not support every claim in Evelyn's notebooks. Prairie brown did not use half as much water under every condition. Some plants performed poorly. Certain fibers were too short for conventional mills. The caterpillars damaged many bolls. But several family lines showed unusually deep roots and strong recovery after water stress. The plants also carried meaningful genetic variation. Some produced natural compounds that appeared to reduce feeding by the caterpillars. Others delayed flowering until after the worst insect wave. A few offered no obvious advantage except their unusual fiber color. Dr. Vega held several brown fibers against the light. "This is not one uniform variety," she explained. "It is a population." Wade frowned. "Is that good or bad?" "It is difficult for industry," she said, "and difficult for a threat to destroy all at once." Tests showed that the natural brown pigment could remain stable through washing. Because the fabric did not need conventional dyeing, it could reduce water and chemical use during textile production. A sustainable clothing company contacted Lily before the harvest was complete. The offer was larger than anything she had imagined. They wanted exclusive rights to prairie brown. They wanted every seed. Her mother stared at the number on the contract. It could pay their debts, repair the farm, and provide financial security for years. Lily read the final pages of Evelyn's notebook again. One sentence had been underlined twice. "A seed becomes weak when one person decides what every plant must become." Lily declined the exclusive sale. Instead, she offered fiber from the first harvest and limited access to several seed families under strict conditions. The company could use the cotton. It could not own the future of the variety. Harvesting prairie brown took longer than Lily expected. The bolls did not open at the same time. Some plants were ready, while others remained green. A commercial machine would have wasted much of the crop, so Lily and her mother picked the first harvest by hand. Several neighbors volunteered. The first was an elderly woman whose mother remembered brown cotton from childhood. The second was a mechanic who had laughed at the auction. Wade did not arrive until the final week. He stood at the field entrance without his hat. "I came to help," he said. Lily handed him a canvas picking bag. They worked in silence. The total harvest was small compared with a commercial farm, but it was enough for the textile workshop to spin an experimental batch. The first fabric varied slightly in shade. Some sections were dark caramel. Others were reddish brown or pale tan. The clothing company considered that variation a flaw. Customers did not. The first limited jackets and blankets sold out within hours. Buyers were drawn to fabric that carried its color naturally and came with the story of a lost family seed surviving a Texas drought. The company placed a larger order. Lily still lacked enough seed to fill it. She created a cooperative instead of expanding alone. Local growers received small packets from several prairie brown families. They agreed to keep the line separate, record water use and insect damage, and return a portion of the seed after harvest. Wade joined last. His first prairie brown field performed unevenly. One section failed in wet ground. Another produced fiber too short for the contract. A third survived a dry period that damaged his remaining commercial cotton. He reported all of it. Within several years, the cooperative supplied natural brown fiber to multiple textile producers. Lily's farm became the center of a seed bank and breeding program rather than a massive cotton plantation. Revenue came from fiber contracts, seed licenses, naturally colored workwear, and research partnerships focused on farming under limited water. The combined value of the brand and its contracts passed several $1 million before Lily finished high school. Newspapers called it the miracle cotton. Lily corrected them whenever she could. The crop was not miraculous. It yielded less than many commercial varieties. It could not be planted everywhere. Its color varied. Some lines attracted insects, others struggled in heavy soil. Growing and processing it required more attention than uniform cotton. Its strength came from the fact that no single weakness belonged to every plant. Years after the auction, Lily stood in a wide prairie brown field beside Wade Pritchard. She was wearing a work jacket woven from her own cotton. The fabric carried the same deep shade as Evelyn's blanket, now stored safely inside the restored farmhouse. Wade opened 2 bowls. One held reddish fiber. The other was almost golden. Buyers used to reject variation like this, he said. They still reject some of it, Lily replied. And you keep it anyway? Sometimes the plant that makes the wrong color has the right roots. Wade looked across the field. Rows of different heights moved beneath the Texas wind. They were not neat enough for the old growers' brochures. They did not look engineered for perfection. They looked alive. The White Grave had never become the highest producing cotton farm in the county. It became something more valuable, a place where old seed was allowed to remain different long enough for the future to need it.
Lily had purchased 37 acres for $4,400. But the real inheritance had been hidden inside a blanket everyone else was ready to throw away. Not because Evelyn knew exactly what disaster would come, because she understood that survival rarely depends on one perfect answer. It depends on keeping enough different answers alive.